All right. So now, as we've spoken, you've understood why is the need of a dual internet connection. How can you use dual internet? What are the benefits? And we spoke about the device in reference that we were talking, the TP-Link TL-R600VPN. Let's see how to configure it. It's a very simple process, not a rocket science. Anybody and everybody can do it. If your basics are correct, that means you have two internet connections from both the internet connection modem, or if you have an Ethernet cable coming into your house from your ISP, ensure that you connect both these connections from the back of your modem from one LAN port into the WAN port of your TP-Link, and the second one into your WAN/LAN port. And from your last port, which is your LAN port, put a connection into your laptop or computer in which you're going to configure. Now, in the box that you would have received, an IP address through which you can connect to your TP-Link. If I'm not wrong, it is 192.168.0.1. In my case, I've changed it a bit. For me, it is 192.168.10.1, and I have configured it to work on a different port. Now, if you want to understand why I have done it so, I can explain it later in a different video, but let's go ahead and start logging in. Now, you would have also received your ID and password on the leaflet. So use that ID and password to log in. Right, so once you log into your TP-Link, here is what you will see. You will see the device information, the hardware information, the time and stuff. But most importantly, we will talk about this interface here, and we'll come to that in a bit. So in our discussion, we were talking about how to have backup internet and manage that backup internet. This can be done, as we spoke, connecting both the internet connection to this device. Now, how does this device manage that, and how do we configure it? Pretty simple, no rocket science. The first thing you need to do is click on your network menu on the left and click on WAN. Now, by default, the device will have one selected. That means there's one WAN connection and the rest are LAN devices. But for our setup, we are using two internet connections. So we will change this to 2. We'll click on 2. So we have WAN 1 and WAN 2, and the other 3 ports are LAN port. Note on your devices, on your device front, there are 5 ports. The first one is a dedicated WAN port. The last one is a dedicated LAN port. And the 3 ports in between are interchangeable between WAN and LAN. So you can decide they can take a LAN connection or they can take an incoming WAN connection, which is your internet connection. In our case, we have 2 internet connections. So we're going to choose 2. So 2 WAN and the remaining 3 LAN, and click on save. So you will have 2 tabs on the top. It says WAN 1 and WAN 2. Now, WAN 1 is the first port on the device to which you've connected the cable from your internet modem. Now, we spoke about something called as bridging. If you have configured your internet modem into a bridge mode, which means that device now no longer dials your internet or manages your internet connection, it only bridges the connection to TP-Link, then you will have to configure the settings of that internet here in TP-Link. Now, in my case, my WAN 1 is from SpectraNet. SpectraNet does not give a modem. They only give a LAN cable to your house. And they provide a dynamic IP address, which means there is no other configuration. You just have to configure it in a dynamic mode, which means it will automatically receive an IP address from your internet provider. So I have configured the connection type to be dynamic, and I have clicked save. It automatically receives an IP and it shows that the connection status is connected. My second connection, which is WAN 2, is from Airtel. Now, yours might be a bit different here. For me, I have a static IP that I've purchased from Airtel, which means I have one single IP address. It doesn't keep changing. For my SpectraNet, this IP address may change, right? This will keep changing. So I have a dynamic IP address. For Airtel, I have a static IP address, which means this IP address does not change. So I have to manually enter static IP and enter the IP address details that I have received from my Airtel service provider. For you, it might be PPPoE, and you might have a username and password to dial Airtel connection. So you choose that and put the username and password and dial. This is only required if you have configured your Airtel modem in a bridge mode. If you've not configured, if you've not done any changes to the Airtel modem, leave it at dynamic IP. And your modem will automatically pass on an IP to this connection. All right. So that's in a nutshell to ensure that TP-Link understands that you have two connections. And as you can see, both connection status says connected. Both will have internet, right? Now, we'll also see how it determines that both internet is connected. Now, what you have essentially done still here is that you have taken two internet connections, connected them to TP-Link R600VPN router, and you have told the router that I have two active internet connections. Period. Your router is already set. Now, from here, there are multiple things that you can do. So let's take an example that my WAN one, which is for in my case is SpectraNet, is a 100 Mbps connection, which means I have 100 Mbps speed that I get. My Airtel is also WAN 2, which for me is Airtel, is also 100 Mbps connection. How do I get 200 Mbps? Because I have two internet. Is there a possibility that I aggregate them and get 200 Mbps output? Possible, perfectly possible using this device. There are drawbacks to it, and I'll explain them. The second method is that I balance the load, which means I still get 100 Mbps speed when I do a speed test, but my connection is balanced between Airtel and SpectraNet. The third option is I only want to use my secondary connection. So for example, here, say Airtel is my secondary connection, and I have a limited bandwidth. I'm paying a very small fee for this connection. It's got very limited speed. It's got very limited bandwidth cap. I don't want it to be turned on all the time so that I don't incur extra cost on it. So I can keep my WAN 2, which is Airtel, as a backup of my WAN 1. So it will only dial WAN 2 when WAN 1 is down. So let's look at all the three methods. To do so, we'll go to transmission in the menu and click on load balancing. Right now, here the first step or the first method that we spoke about is to get double speed, which means I have two internet connections of 100 Mbps each. I want to aggregate them and get 200 Mbps. To do so, I will uncheck this box which says enable load balancing. In this case, TP-Link will aggregate the connection and give you a 200 Mbps throughput. So if you do a speed check after this, you will get 200 Mbps speeds, right? That is how you get an aggregated speed. The drawback of this is if one of the connection is down, TP-Link doesn't know what to do and how to aggregate. So it will still try to push data equally between both the connections. But since one of the connection is down, you will have packet drops and you will have internet connectivity issues. So you only do this when you require and you're confident that your connections don't go down. The second method is to load balance the connection between both your internet connections. This way you get a reliable connection and it will automatically balance the load if one of the connection goes down, right? So when both the connections are active, it will distribute the load between both of them. If one of the connection goes down, it can automatically route all the connections to the one that is active, right? There are a few more settings like application-based optimized routing and enable bandwidth-based routing on ports. Bandwidth-based routing, I'll keep it for a separate video. If you want to know how bandwidth-based routing is, it is basically the fact that my connection 1 is 40 Mbps, my connection 2 is 100 Mbps. So it will send, I want to optimize the routing, which means I want to get more data sent to the one that is 100 Mbps connection and less bandwidth utilized on a 40 Mbps connection. I can do that, but that's a different session. We'll cover that if you need to understand that in detail. But for this video, if you want to balance load, you enable load balancing. If you want aggregation, you disable load balancing. Application-based optimized routing is basically saying that an application is currently using WAN 1 connection. Till the time the application is active, it will continue to use that WAN 1 connection, and till the time WAN 1 is active, it will get routed via one ISP only or one connection only. This way you get decent stability in your connection, because your TP-Link router is not splitting the connection or not pushing connection between different ISPs. It's not doing a ping pong. It is routing everything via one ISP for one particular application. For example, you are in a meeting and you're using Teams or Zoom, and Zoom has has connected to the internet via WAN 1. So TP-Link will always continue to send all traffic via WAN 1 till your Zoom call is active. Say you got into the next call, and this time the connection for TP-Link was initiated via WAN 2. So till that meeting is over, your connection will be initiated, continue to be sent via WAN 2. That is optimized routing based on application. The third option is to create link backups, which means, like I said, your connection 2 is of a low cost, low bandwidth, and does not have too much of bytes allowed. So you can create backup to only activate that when first connection goes down. That can be done using link backup. Here you can specify which connection is primary. So for example, in my case, say WAN 2, say my Airtel is primary and my SpectraNet is backup. You can have, if you have more than 2 connections, you can specify more than 1 connection as primary, right? And you can specify which is the backup. Backup is only 1, but you can have more than 1 as primary. Backup can be only 1 of them, right? Now you can decide how you want the backup to work. The default method is based on timing. So you can specify a time in which your primary should work and a time in which your backup should work. So that's a timing base. So you can say that from morning 9 to evening 9, I want Airtel to work. After 9 in the night, I want, there is less internet consumption, so I want SpectraNet to work. That's timing. Failover is when any of the primary, so if you have multiple primary connections here, if any of these primary connection fails, so I have only selected WAN 2. So if this WAN 2 connection is down, then it will dial WAN 1. The third option is when all, which means if I have more than 1 selected, if all the connections are down, only then it will dial the backup. Now, when you select this and you click OK, you know, we saw in the beginning that both the connections were connected. When link backup is turned on and it sees that WAN 2 is my primary and it has got internet connection, it's going to disconnect WAN 1. I'm going to keep WAN 1 in disconnected state till WAN 2 is active, WAN 2 is working. We also have to find out how does the system decide if WAN 2 is working. We'll come to that in a bit. But in this way, you can have WAN 1, which is your backup internet, only being triggered to step in case when your primary fails. That's how you can have a link backup. So you can have the secondary connection only activated when your primary is down. So what we have seen so far is link aggregation, which means you don't have to, you're not load balancing, you're aggregating 2 connections and getting 1 output, and you're doubling your speed. The second is load balancing, which means you balance the load between 2 internet connections. And third one is acting as backup, which means when your primary is down, the backup will take over. Now, there will be a slight delay in the link backup method, because the system will take some time to determine that the primary is down, provided you've also configured it correctly. And let's look at how you configure it. Now, here, if you see WAN 1 and WAN 2 is saying status is online. We previously discussed about bridge mode and router mode for your ISP modem. If you have configured the bridge mode in your ISP modem, then the default method is fine. The system will automatically detect. But if you have not configured your ISP modem is still acting as a router, then I would recommend that you go to online detection, go to edit the operation and change the method from auto to manual. Here, you should provide an IP address of any external site that your TP-Link should try to connect via that port. So here, in the sense, my WAN 1 is SpectraNet, and say I want to connect to Google 8.8. This is Google's DNS server, right? It should ping this, and it should also look for this DNS, right? So if I provide this, now what will happen is the TP-Link will try to ping 8.8.8 and also resolve any host name that I'm providing here, which I've not done right now, using this DNS address. If TP-Link is unable to complete this connection, TP-Link will say WAN 1 is down, link backup is active, should turn on WAN 2. If TP-Link is able to successfully ping 8.8.8.8, it will say WAN 1 is working, I'll keep WAN 2 turned off. You can activate this for even if your modem is in bridge mode or router mode, you can use manual method. But I would recommend if your modem is in router mode, which means you've not changed it to bridge mode, you should use manual method. Because in auto method, it'll try to connect to the modem. The modem will always be connected, irrespective your internet is working or not. Your modem will always receive a response or will provide a response to TP-Link, and TP-Link will say that the connection is active. That will be a false indicator to TP-Link, and it will not dial WAN 2 in case you've activated link backup. So in the method where you've not touched your ISP modem, you should always use the manual method. In my case, I'm going to use auto because I have TP-Link, this modem or this router managing all the connections. That is all what you need to do in this to ensure that you have uninterrupted internet connection. Using any of the methods, load balancing is the most decent method because you will never see internet issues, provided one of your internet is working. God forbid both your internet goes down, even TP-Link cannot help you, but that's a rare case. If you have two internet connections from two different providers, like I have SpectraNet and Airtel, they're two different providers. If you take both Airtel, then the chances of both going down is equal, which means when your connection one from Airtel is down, your Airtel 2 connection will also be down. So it's always recommended that you take these two internet connections from two different providers, use a TP-Link R600 VPN device, and ensure that you are having seamless internet connection at your home. If you like this video, please leave your comments below. If you want to understand more about the features of this device, please do leave your comments. We have something called as bandwidth control. If your connection is metered, which means you have like a 50 GB cap on your internet. If you want to stop sending packets or overutilizing your internet beyond 50 GB, all of that can be done. You want to, like I have a static IP. If I want to host a website from my home, I can do that. I can also connect to my home network from being outside using VPN. All of that can be done using this device. If you want to know more about how to do all of that, please leave your comments below, and happy to share your feedback on how did you like this video. And I will be able to also create more videos based on your feedback to help you understand how to get more out of your internet connection at home and make the most out of it from your internet. Thank you so much for watching. This is Tech Tips with Lijo. Hope you had a nice video. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead.